and welcome to another episode of the Growth Focus podcast, where we bring together tech leaders from all across the globe to share their insights and their expertise so that we can all grow together. My name is Gary Lafferty and I am your host. And this episode, I'm very pleased to have my guest Mike Giorgione from LeanFM Technologies. And he's going to be sharing his insights and his expertise on all things to do with building a tech company. So without further ado, Mike, it's fantastic to have you here. Can I just pass it over to you and ask you to introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your history, where you started and where you are today in tech?
Thank you, Gary. Wonderful to be here. Appreciate the invitation. Hello, listeners, and thank you for joining Gary's podcast again. Mike Giorgione from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Spent 30 years in the military and the Navy, specifically as a Civil Engineer Corps officer. So my background was facilities management of Navy and Marine Corps installations around the world. Everything from acquisition to maintenance to construction to design to environmental cleanup to demolition, etc. So that's my background. I retired in 2010 after 30 years. And in looking for a purpose in life, I knew I was going to struggle. What do I do now? How do I apply those skills and things I enjoyed? And I worked for 4 years in the architect engineer industry, and it was fine. Those were good steps for me, important steps, but it was not fulfilling my inner need. And so I knew one day I would go out on my own and do my own consulting, do a lot of leadership training and teaching and facilitating. And along that path, I was introduced to this company, LeanFM Technologies, coincidentally based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, spun out of Carnegie Mellon University. I was introduced to it by my best friend from high school, who was the lead investor on the first round, and I joined them about 4 years ago this month. So it's been 4 years as their CEO with LeanFM Technologies.
Well, congratulations on joining. I'm coming up to CEO with the company. Now, before we get on the company, what I would like to ask you really is, having had such a long career in the military, where you obviously garnished a lot of skills with dealing with people as well as dealing with the topics that you talked about. What was the draw to entrepreneurship? Because coming from a military, that's obviously in your blood. You did go and work for someone, but what was the draw to go into entrepreneurship?
Most of us who retire from the military tend to stay in a very comfortable world. So engineers, architects, most of my colleagues work for universities, hospitals. They're the owner's rep, okay, because it's comfortable. I knew I wanted to do my own thing. Using that knowledge, I knew I wanted to do my own thing, so that's why I went out and started my own business, consulting. But I was always impressed with people who built something out of essentially nothing. For good purpose, good reason. I would have never thought of tech, and it just wasn't my background and my skill set. But because our company has a connection to facilities and facility management, it made sense to maybe look into it. So again, I am impressed with people who build something.
Yeah,
absolutely. For good purpose, good reason. And that's what attracted me to this unique opportunity.
Brilliant. So for those who haven't maybe not heard of LeanFM Technologies, can you explain to us what exactly you do, who you serve, and the problem that you intend to solve?
Yes, thank you. First, a credit to the two co-founders, both a former current professor, Dr. Burju Kinja. She is now the head of civil and environmental engineering at Carnegie Mellon, and her former student, PhD student, Dr. Pine Liu, now the CTO of LeanFM. They spun this out in 2016. They took a few pivots, as most tech companies do, into what they actually do, but their focus is this. They are solving the number one energy waste problem in any structure, that is HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. That's what caused, in most structures, the biggest energy bill, followed by lighting and then plug load. So they focused on that industry and that need, and what they developed was a supervised machine learning algorithm program that goes into the software and the hardware features of the HVAC system in any structure with a large HVAC system and analyzes what's going on. It maps it takes the control logic of the building management system. It uses digital twinning. It has a number of algorithms and libraries of tools that analyze it, and it diagnoses and reports the faults in either the software or the hardware. Why is that important? Because those faults tend to equate to an energy waste or inefficient operation, and that's what we inform the client on as to what to repair rather than unpack. This world is called FDD, Fault Detection and Diagnostics, FDD. It is not rule-based. This is the genius of these founders. It's not rule-based, which is if-then statements typically. It is a supervised learning platform. It is on the leading edge of prescriptive maintenance.
Gotcha. Fascinating. So tell me a little bit more about as you say, on the leading edge. It's not rule-based. I assume you're using some form of AI to do that, or is that
No, it is,
correct?
yes. The supervised learning is a type of AI. It's not unsupervised. Like it's supervised. Like many of the things in smart cars and smart buildings and other things that are being developed rely on supervised or unsupervised learning modules. So that's the language we work in. Again, it's not rule-based, which means once we connect to the computer system in HVAC, we can very quickly analyze and connect to all the points in the HVAC system. Very heavy on mechanical engineering, but it's pulling all that data and it's looking at pattern recognition, trend analysis of what's going on in the programming as well as the actual mechanical operation. And it's predicting his faults through trend analysis and pattern recognition of what is happening and what's wasting. Okay?
Got you. So
most people know the traditional HVAC problem of one side of the room is cold, one is hot. People put the manila envelope above it. Well, there's a reason why, mechanically or programming-wise, that's happening. And it's just causing a lot of wasted energy. And for many jurisdictions in the world, in this country, you have to reduce your greenhouse gas. And if it's a fossil fuel source, this is a way you can manage that and govern and show the improvement.
Got it. So given the fact that, I find that absolutely fascinating as well, because you said most people have an understanding of challenges when it comes to their own HVAC, but not necessarily the most efficient way of dealing with it. So bearing in mind that most companies would glean their clients from one of things, or people will buy based upon either make me money, save me money, make me more compliant and keep me out of jail, with the things that, with knowing that full well that these companies now have to reduce the greenhouse gases, they have to be more efficient.
Yes.
And it can save them money. What would you say are the most common misconceptions that your market has when it comes to utilizing the products and the services that you have?
When I made that transition I talked about earlier, Gary, going from the Navy and facilities into this world of entrepreneurism and a tech startup, it was a bit of an uncomfortable feeling for me. I never felt that before. Not that I'm not the type that has to know everything, but I know the basics. So there's a lot of trust and a lot of learning I had to do about the programming world. But I was comfortable with facilities. I was surprised and disappointed with the way some facility managers view technology. And I didn't say all listeners, I said some. And many of our clients, I am very disappointed and surprised. They go to the conferences, they have their podcasts, they have their seminars, they all talked about AI and using this and that. But I find that many of them don't really understand what it does for them, or they're not understanding what problem they're trying to solve. Two, they think they're just going to buy the shiny object and it's going to fix everything for them and just tell them what to do, and that's not the case. We are providing information to the mechanics, to the repairmen and women who do this work, to give them good info on what to repair, rather than just hunt down a ticket in the shop that they don't understand. Many don't know how to use that effectively, and many don't put it to use.
Yeah, so that's got to be quite a frustrating part, because they're in a role trying to make decisions which they're probably not necessarily qualified to do, because they're not usually the hands-on. They're probably looking at the numbers, they're the executives, they're looking at this and saying, does this make financial sense for us?
Yes.
But they really have no idea when it comes down to the actual usage of it, hands-on, boots in the trenches, everyday use of it, and therefore are probably making, if I get this right, they're probably making decisions or not making decisions with the wrong information or their wrong perception of what they believe is to be true. Is that roughly where we are?
Wrong perception. Many of the listeners who are businesses like us and other applications, sometimes when you're working with a client and trying to teach them something, you become this lubricating oil, and you learn about how poorly or well they're organized and how well they understand each other's business. I was surprised, again, leaving the Navy background, very orderly, very organized. I thought industry had it much better. I thought they were absolutely more organized, better decision making, that entrepreneurial spirit. Again, not all, but many very fragmented organizations, very limited authority on procurement for dollars, very limited understanding of who owns what. I may be the engineer, but I don't own the mechanics, so I have to talk to him or her to get them to buy into why we're doing this and why I got the CEO to agree with this, but the CFO wants to see the results, and they're not putting the application in, and they're not using the results to really show the savings. That is extremely surprising. But we're willing to lubricate. We're willing to teach. That's part of what we do. We teach. But if you're not going to put the data into use effectively, then you're wasting time.
Absolutely. So it almost seems like, from listening to you here, Mike, that there's a big detachment between those who pull the trigger, so as it were, as opposed to people who are using it, and they don't really understand what they're buying, why they're buying it, and how to buy it. It's just a product, or it's just a service to them, and if it fits the sums and it fits the math, then it's a go. If it doesn't, I don't really understand it, then it's probably a no. When actually, if they were better educated on it, and as you said, bringing the teams together as opposed to the individual fractionalization of it all, then decisions could be made far more efficiently.
Absolutely. Many are just jaded by, oh, that has a nice dashboard, that's really pretty. Oh, it tells me what the weather is today. Like you need another application, you're telling me what the weather is. It tells me what to fix. Does it really? Many don't understand the diagnostics, and that's where we go deep, because we're using, again, a supervised learning product, not a rule-based product. Okay? And that platform is very powerful for people who understand it.
Yeah.
Many just don't have the perspective and the ability to do that.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And I think especially for those who, and we've talked about this before, we talked about this off camera, and I've talked about this with other tech leaders and CEOs as well, is that if you have the wrong people in the wrong positions making the wrong decisions, then that has a really knock-on effect, not just for the supplier, but for the vendor as well, and for the actual prospect, because they're not making those decisions. They put people into place who they assume are going to make the right decisions, but don't have enough information to make those decisions. So that being said, what is the solution? Is the solution more educational-based marketing? Is the solution to put them into more classroom-based? Because as your technology grows and gets better and evolves on a daily basis, then you've almost got to keep teaching them as well.
I think so. There is a definite need and opportunity for many of us in this business to teach. Mm-hmm. Now, I mentioned several times about the organizational disjointedness. I can't fix that, but I know that's a very, very serious problem. If you are the facility manager for, say, this university, Gary, and you report to probably the CFO, mm-hmm. and you have a budget, but you don't own, again, the maintenance shop, or you have a poor relationship with IT, but you need them to put it, make this work, then that is going to be a heck of a sell. And every time I have a call with you, I need to make sure those other entities are on the call. And I've seen many times, if you're not aligned with each other or you don't have the authority, it's never going to go anywhere. It's going to be very difficult. And the thing I've really seen more recently is that IT, everyone's important in an organization. Everyone has an important role. Please listen, listeners. Everyone has an important role. But IT is a support function. It's critically important these days with cybersecurity and all our concerns. But it's a support function to the operations of the company. And what I see now is facilities managers aren't making a decision on what they buy. IT is. IT should be a player. That's why we're ISO certified in cybersecurity. That's why we'll fill out the questionnaires and go through the rubric. Absolutely. But I see many FMs losing their project because IT didn't put it on their to-do list this year. And I do not understand that. They don't need to do much with us. They need to give us one port to plug into the building automation system. And from there, as long as it's always on, we don't have an issue with IT. That bothers me the most. We're letting the support function, we're letting IT make decisions for the operational mission of the company.
And that's quite an interesting concept there. Just the fact that this isn't just an individual issue. This is an issue which happens across all facilities, across the whole of the United States, and indeed the world as well. That, again, going back to that, people are making decisions who haven't got their boots in the trenches, or at least do not understand what the guys are doing with the boots in the trenches, who actually have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. So there's going to be people listening. There's going to be people watching here, Mike, who run similar businesses to you, who are having these similar issues to you. What in your experiences have you done that is paving the way to make this better?
I find you got to go to the client. You go to the conference, you do the speaking, which I mentioned before. Again, a conference, it's not a good sell. It's interesting to present a technical topic and people come up and they want to talk with you, and that usually goes nowhere. I get that. That's the world we're in. I find if I'm able to get into the room with the client at their facility and have those people I've talked about in the same room, probably have a better chance of answering those questions and giving them some comfort level as to what we do and how it helps them. But that's difficult. Not everyone wants to host you. Not everyone has the money to travel. That's a lot of clients to chase, and I don't know if that's as effective. That'd be the only thing. That's the one selling process. I think for us and what we do, one thing uniquely, probably for us as a company, and many of our partners have seen this, is you need to join forces with someone else. We're focused on HVAC. That's not the only problem in a facility. You have entry control point concerns, security, etc. Maybe, and many clients will say this, we want one IT platform that does everything. Tell us when the paper towels are low in the bathroom, to intrusion alarms, to fire alarms, to HVAC. I don't know that exists. You hear this overused acronym, single pane of glass. It's a nice concept. It's very academic, but I don't know anyone's solved that yet. But I think for LeanFM, a partnership with an entity that's in the building space as well is probably what's best for us in the business model.
I think this is and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the most productive ways to get your business through people's doors today, and as I said, in every business exactly the same, there is this overriding distrust of companies, nowadays. So number one, you've got to speak to the right person, as you've mentioned before. You've got to speak to the right person at the right time. Then you've got to then you've got to get them to trust you. They have this innate ability of distrust of anyone who approaches them. And then you've got to try and say, hey, here's your problem, and this is how we can solve it. So there's a lot more layers than it ever used to be, and it's getting worse and worse on every day. But one of the most productive and efficient ways to get through that door and to start building trust, as you say, is joint ventures. Is using people, partnering with people, partnering like marketing partners who are already in that space, who are already through the door, that could literally leave the door open for you to walk through. But that in itself is an issue. It takes time. You can't just go and call someone up and say, hey, can you leave the door open for me and let me through?
Because they want to know, well, what hole can you fill that I don't currently do? Or how do you advance the ball for us? How do you contribute to our bottom line? Back to the trust factor, Gary, I'm sure you've seen this. A lot of people in this world, although we all use technology to some degree, they just don't trust what's really going on in that little box. And
Absolutely,
we spoke at the Building Owners and Managers Association luncheon recently in Pittsburgh, and they asked us, can you just tell us what is AI? I mean, they were kind of being a little funny, but in facilities management, running our buildings, and a bunch of real estate developers are there and owners, is what does technology really mean? And you got to take away, this is not magic. There's a reason why this technology works and why it's reading certain things in your facility. And we just spent time talking about it, trying to ease the angst that people have. And I think that's part of the tough thing about selling our software to facility management organizations is they don't understand. A person who spent 60 years maintaining the HVAC system, why does he need to use a dashboard, or why does he need to read a maintenance ticket from someone based on what a computer told him? There's a lot of education here. We go back to that theme again, and the building of trust. So if I can find someone who's already entered that relationship with that client and has that positive relationship, then that's probably a better play for us and other vendors.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. I think there is so much distrust and misinformation. Like you said, what is AI? What goes on in that little box? And there's a tendency, certainly, especially in the tech world, in the engineering world, what we call the bells and whistles. When you're trying to explain something to somebody, there are usually two types of presentations, if you want to look at it that way. One is the bells and whistles to the actual person dealing with it. They want to know, how does it work? What lights up what? And if that happens, what button do I press? And that kind of stuff. And what is the ticket? That's one presentation. But when you're talking to C-level, it needs a completely different conversation. It's no longer about the bells and whistles. It's all about, this is the language that you speak in. You speak in ROIs. You speak in numerical math. You speak in future-based and saving me, and keeping me out of jail, making me compliant. They don't really care about what light goes when and what kind of ticket comes out and when it does. It's all about, does it make sense financially? So that being said, with both of those, it's almost like we have to do a two-pronged education approach. It's teaching those who use it, and then teaching those the benefit of the ROI and the math and why it makes sense.
Entering this space and going to other presentations, looking at other people's websites, I've learned, hey, we all say we can save you 20 to 30%. That's like a given. It's like, if you don't say that, you're like a loser. But no one can guarantee 20 to 30%, but that's what everyone says. Here's
Yes.
what we like. We like to get into the details and really explain to someone on the client what's going on in the technology. I need to find just that one person in that HVAC shop or that engineering space who really understands what we're talking about. And our CTO, the co-founder, can go deep and show them the core, the basic reasons, answer the why this fault exists and why it creates more emissions of energy and why it's affecting your CO2 levels and why it's raising your chilled water bill and why it's operating more inefficiently. That's the real case. We love to go deep on the technology and explain it to someone who really understands it, because that all filters up to the ROI that the front office wants to see. For federal buildings, our best client is someone who has the EPA Energy Star data. That is a vetted, well-accepted program that maps your energy utilization index, Gary, and that shows what you're achieving in savings when that EUI curve goes down based on what we're doing with just HVAC. That proves it. No more talk, no more ESG governance policies and blah, 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 and cloudy presentations. Real, tangible results. That depends on our data, and that depends on the work people going to make the changes. We're not controlling the system. We're not running your system. I don't think you want that. But we're going to inform you with credible data what to fix. Not everything. Focus on the top 20%, which is 80% of your problems.
Yeah, it always is. The 80-20 is always the thing. So
Pareto principle, once again.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter whenever you bring this into play, it just works every single time. As you said, if we focus on that 20%, we can fix that 20%, the 80% will catch up and we can deal with that later. But this is the top bits that makes it. What is the needle mover? With that, I like to just move to a side a little bit, sort of flip the coin a little bit. When it comes to getting in front of the right people, as you just said, it's all about, if I can just get to that one person in the facility manager that could do this, what are the challenges that you have in getting to speak to the right person? Especially, as you say, we've got to hit the right person first before it trickles up. What are the challenges that you're having, which no doubt others are having as well, of getting through or finding that right person and having the right conversation with them?
Typically, we want to get to the building engineer or the facility manager, the vice chancellor or the vice president for facilities. How do we find that person? It's not cold calling anymore. It's maybe an introduction, a friend of a friend. A lot of my colleagues from the Navy are that person for that university or hospital. Who does the faculty at Carnegie Mellon know that can introduce us? We go to the conferences. We can use a lead generation software package to get us introduced. So we get that facility manager. That's the first phone call. I believe he or she will understand enough about engineering and mechanical operations and maintenance to understand this is a problem they're having and we can help them. That second call. And in that first call, Gary, I need to learn, do you have the procurement authority? Meaning, do you have any acquisition threshold? How's your relation with your IT department? Because we're going to have to talk with them. And what are your maintenance problems now? Why did you take my call? Why are we having this? So that's the first meeting. The second meeting is, please bring in your maintenance people if they don't already work for you directly, and that IT person. Because I got to get them in early. And then we start down the road of what we can do. Some will have different acquisition rules based on public money versus private money. Thresholds. You got to vet that very quickly to find out if this client's going to be worth working with or if it's even a possible. In that, you also have a discussion with their facilities and what are their biggest problems with their HVAC systems and what energy drains they're having.
True. And I think this is, like you said, having that first conversation first with the right person. But also, like you said, if the challenge is going to be IT, let's get the IT person in. We know they're going to make a decision somewhere down the line. They're going to be instrumental in that. Whether it's a yay, nay, or going to put a spanner in the spokes. So getting them in early, getting their buy-in early is vitally important, because you don't want to be going down. And I think those who are listening should, sort of pay attention to this a little bit. What you don't want to be doing is, for example, just appeasing the people because you're having easy conversations and leaving the IT person to later on, thinking if I can build up enough rapport here, the IT person will be easy. Let's get them in first. Let's have those hard conversations. A mentor of mine told me many, many years ago, if you want to be successful, make sure you do the hardest things first. Get the hardest things done first. Everything else becomes easy. Otherwise, the other flip it away around. Do the easy things now, harder life later. Right? So have those awkward conversations because it's coming.
Right.
And get it done.
I mean, I know facilities management. Everyone has to be at the table early. And I find sometimes that engineer is surprised. I said, why are you asking for IT? Because they need to be part of this.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be the decision maker, as I said earlier, but they need to be involved with us. And I know they have a checklist we have to satisfy.
Yeah, absolutely. So as
That's
I said,
important.
they're either going to say yay, they're going to be a yay, a nay, or put a spanner in the works. Let's avoid
Right.
the spanner in the works to begin with.
And if there's going to be a spanner, then we're probably not going to go any further. And let's I thank you for your time, and we move on because it's not
Absolutely.
going to be doable.
Yeah, exactly right. Rather than spending lots of time. And I think there's a lot of people in your position, running companies like you, being in companies like yours, who spend a lot of time, what I could go around the merry-go-round. It's like demo after demo, conversation after conversation, and we're never ever going anywhere because you have one conversation with one department, then you have another same conversation with another department, and it goes back up and back down. You're playing this yo-yo game constantly. And it's a way to just drawing out the sales cycle, which doesn't need to happen if you get it right from the very beginning.
I mean, we believe in lean management. That's the principle the founders put in this name, LeanFM, Lean Facilities Management Technologies. It's about focus. It's about being efficient and getting to the core issue early, not far down the road.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, Mike. And before I let you go, and thank you very much for sharing these insights, because I think, the whole point of this podcast is to let people know that they're not alone. That there are people having challenges just like you are out there, and this is a way that we can share with our peers and our insights and potentially help people grow as well. So before I let you go, Mike, it's a loaded question. I ask all my guests this. With your illustrious career in the Navy, in the military, coming out, being the CEO as you see it today, and just seeing the challenges that are happening out there and having to deal with it on a day-to-day basis. My question to you is this. Knowing what you know, if you could go back and give yourself, your younger self, it doesn't matter if you're still in the military or as a CEO, one piece of advice that will invigorate you, inspire you, empower you, what would that piece of advice be, Mike?
Gary, I would not have changed anything in my career, professional career. For me, the service of the Navy and what I learned, the opportunities were, without a doubt, one of the greatest purposes I've had in life. I know I can't replicate that on the outside, but I can bring the leadership skills and the people skills into whatever I do. And another opportunity with LeanFM was being in a leadership role of an actual company, not just my own consulting practice where I'm one of one. I learned early it's not about me. I have this phrase, it's not about you. It's about the mission and it's about your people. And we've always led with that integrity in our company. I probably, to answer your question more specifically, being a very quiet person and the Navy brought it out of me, I probably would have been a little more assertive in my leadership positions early on in life to really stretch my aptitude. That came along after 30 years, certainly. And in doing my own business and leading in LeanFM, that's happened again. But quite honestly, I wouldn't change anything. It was about learning how to effectively lead people and understand that we all have a mission in life, and that's always what drives us.
I think that's lovely. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the mission. It's about others. We don't want to be that sole person on an island. Well, some people do, but most people don't want to be that sole person on an island. And if we can help, when I first met you, like I said, I totally believe a rising tide raises all ships. And if we can all do that and help each other, then the world, the industry, businesses, entrepreneurism will be in a far better place moving forward.
It's not about you. That's exactly what happens. Because you are, competence, confidence, and humility are an incredible combination.
Love that. I love that.
Right? Because humility is about self-esteem and confidence. I can be smart, but I don't have to be the smartest person because I trust you and I trust the team. And I know how to listen to you and ask the right questions. But I got to be good. I know that. I got my A game, but I don't have to be good at everything. 80-20 again. But that humility really is what I learned in the military. You can be successful without it, but it's not the kind of success that I respect.
Absolutely.
Gary, I appreciate the time with you and the listeners today. Folks, I hope I've given you some insights honestly and positively, constructively. But that's been our experiences. And again, LeanFM Technologies, look forward to meeting some of you today. Gary, thank you again for your time.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Mike, having you here. So if people want to get hold of you, what's the best way if they want to get in touch with you? They maybe want to know more about what you do, potentially work with you. What's the best way of getting in touch with you?
We're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook, leanfmtech.com. That's the best way, or my name. You can Google my name. You'll find a lot of the other things I've done in life, but you'll get to the point of where I'm with LeanFM as well.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure I'll put those links in the show notes underneath, so if people want to get hold of you, that they can actually do that from there. So again, thank you very much, Mike, for your time, for your sharing your insights and your expertise. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
Very welcome. Thank you, Gary, for what you do. Take care, everyone.
Thank you guys for joining us on this brilliant episode again. You know, Mike has shared some great insights into the challenges that a majority of people are having out there and how to deal with it. And, you know, as I said, and he's brought along his complete career and broke it down and got some of the great insights and expertise that we could all use from that. So if you've got one thing out of this, or maybe more, and hopefully more than that, please make sure you do one of four things, which is to make sure you like this episode, make sure you comment with what you potentially learned from here, and subscribe, but more importantly, share. Let's share Mike's experience and his insights so that the rest of us can all grow. So again, thank you very much for joining us. And until the next episode, goodbye. We shall see you all soon. Bye-bye.